Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Oh, think I'm on.
Should be. Looks good.
Hi there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, although I'd love it if I can tell that you guys can hear me. If any of you can unmute and say hello. Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I'm starting on page 43 of the One Thing Today, and I love this concept of multitasking. I think there's so many people, and I even see them on resumes sometimes, that say that they're great at multitasking, and then when you read the research, I love on page 43, just even in that red font, to do things at once is to do neither. And whenever the One Thing came out, I went to the One Thing book club or book review. There was a kind of like a book release where you went to the event, and there was an event in Houston, and Jay Papasan came and explained the research of the One Thing and talked about the content of the One Thing. And when he got to the part about multitasking, this was a big, huge section that he discussed, and they'd spent a lot of time researching this part. And what they said, what Jay said that kind of stuck with me was you could do two things at once as long as one of the two is not important. So the way Jay described it is, say you were watching television and you were folding laundry. Well, the folding laundry task does not take a big chunk of your brain and concentration. So you could probably sort your socks and kind of watch the television, but let's just say something on the television caught your attention and it was important, or it was a part of the show that you really wanted to see. You would actually stop folding your socks.
I don't know what that is.
Are you there, Melinda?
People.
You would stop folding your socks during that time to watch that television, or you would maybe even rewind it to watch it again. So the point is, you actually you cannot really listen to something and concentrate at the same time. Even if you're a visual learner and not an audio learner, the research showed that if you're truly multitasking, you cannot do it effectively. No one can. So like my boyfriend as an engineer thinks that he can, and it's proven in here not. So on page 44, he says multitasking is a lie. In the red, multitasking is merely the opportunity to screw up more than one thing at a time.
Okay.
Somebody there with me?
It's me.
Is that Earl?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any feedback on that? I just think it's important that we talk about this part of the book. So basically the concept of the page 43, 44, 45, I love how he underlines on 46, smartphones in hands before napkins hit laps. It's not that we have too little time to do all the things that we need to do. It's that we feel the need to do too many things in the time we have. So that he goes into juggling, and this part of the book, juggling is an illusion on page 47. We come by it naturally. With an average of 4,000 thoughts a day flying in and out of our heads, it's easy to see why we try to multitask. If I change in thought every 14 seconds, it's an invitation to change direction, then it's rather obvious that we're continually tempted to try to do too much at once. I love this when you realize, and this is why it's called the One Thing, that all of the things that enter your mind, where do you place them? How do you handle that stress? And he says the pull is to juggle more than one task at a time is not the core of how we're wired, but it's almost like a necessarily to survive. But juggling is not multitasking. Juggling is an illusion. To the casual observer, a juggler is juggling 3 balls at once. In reality, the balls are independently caught and thrown in rapid succession. You guys are not talking this morning. So on page 48. You've got your start and your primary work. You see the diagrams, and then you switch and you reorient, and then you distract, and then this time goes on, and then you switch and reorient and get your primary work done to finish. So what happens is all day long you're distracted, and sometimes it's other people distracting you, and sometimes it is the world distracting you in various ways. It's phone calls, it's the ding from your text messages. Like really, honestly, when you take the text message and the ding happens, you cannot help but obsessively look at it to see if it's important, and whatever you were focused on, your time diminished. So then at the end of the day, you go, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do everything I needed to do. But in reality, it's all of the distractions that you allowed. And the book is about stopping allowing it, right? At least getting your primary work done with purpose. And so his primary workflow from start to finish, if you were to close your door, if you were to say no to somebody when they asked you if you could have a minute, and you could say, I don't have a minute right now, but I do have a minute in about an hour because I'm working on something that matters. This is taking control of your life. And it just is. And as realtors, what I thought about this is I would want to contact the clients at the beginning of the day, because then when they were going to call me back, say it was about the inspections or the appraisal or the closing or the going the showings, and you've got to make the showing appointment. So I can really wait till noon after I lead generated. This is what I told myself. I needed to do it in the morning so that my day started flowing. And then I would find myself day after day never lead generating and going in these peaks and valleys. So then after this wonderful book, and also still it's a struggle all the time, I said, okay, if I were to do my important work, for example, 9 to 10, and I knew that I needed to contact people for future business, and then I waited, for example, until 10 to set the showing appointments that I needed to set and to answer the appraisal and those things, I found that I still did all of the things that had to happen for my clients that I currently had. I just also had future clients. So it's really, you have to believe that it could wait. Like, let's say I got the appraisal back and it was low. What I found was I needed to tell them immediately and handle it and put that fire out, so to speak. I found that when I did that at 10 or 11 or 12, the same things occurred. I just had talked to myself into this reactionary thinking that wasn't true. Business people realize that they can get the work that they need to get done. You know, even if it's like, say, clear your emails or whatever it is, you say, I'm going to do that for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to answer all of these other things. So like in bold, they say the work expands the time allowed. It's very true, and it's proven. This is science in this book, guys. It's not like an idea. So on page 48 at the bottom, where task switching exacts a cost that few even realize they're paying. So the brain channels, what's happening, we're doing two things at once. So this is just basically, even if you're just listening to something on the computer, say you wanted to listen in on the live stream last week, and you're also doing some task that maybe you do all the time and it's not that big of a deal, you're actually not going to be as effective as if you turned that thing off and listened to it later. It's just science. So he says on page 49, many think the body is functioning without their conscious direction when they're multitasking. It's true. A lot of our physical actions, like breathing, being directed from a different part of our brain, is where focus comes from. So this is what I'm saying, that you could fold laundry at the same time as you could watch TV. It's using two different parts of your brain. You're just not going to do very effective work on either. It's not either the best folding job you've ever done if you're actually watching the television, as opposed to nothing else besides that you're focusing on. So on page 50, on number 1, there's just so much brain capacity at any one time. Divide it up as much as you want, but you'll pay a price in time and effectiveness. The more time you spend switch to another task, the less likely you're able to get back to your original task. This is how loose ends pile up. Bounce between one activity and another, and you lose time as your brain reorients to the new task. Those milliseconds add up. Researchers estimate we lose 28% of an average workday to multitasking ineffectiveness. In the engineer world, because I know it because my boyfriend's in it, they talk about this quite a bit, where they used to give awards for multitasking. Now they realize that it costs so much of the workforce that they've stopped. I mean, you'll still hear people think that it works. Chronic multitaskers develop a distorted sense of how long it takes to do things. Multitaskers make more mistakes than non-multitaskers. Multitaskers experience more life-reducing, happiness-quelching stress. I'm raising my hand on that one. And that's just sometimes your own decisions, right? It's a decision after decision. So the research is overwhelmingly clear. Multitasking leads to mistakes, poor choices, and stress, but we still attempt it. So then he goes on to talk about a little bit about distraction. And I think that on page 52, why would we ever tolerate multitasking when we're doing our most important work? So the book is not about you could never multitask. You could never fold laundry and watch TV. You can, because neither watching TV or multitasking is important work. I mean, you got to get laundry folded and you've got to possibly get entertained. But if it's important to you and it's if you divide your life into what matters the most, it's kind of like if you're spending time with your children, like let's say you looked at your personal life and you said, this is the most important relationship of my life. And at the same time, when you're in the world with that person, whether it's your spouse or your children or whomever, and you're on your phone the whole time. And as realtors, I've done that where I can't get off my phone. I can't reply to the text at 9 o'clock that would actually be fine to wait till tomorrow. It's really just a frenzy that we get in. And we believe that, what if we lose this client if we don't do this right now? And then at the end of the day, you didn't spend time on what really you care about. And then that stresses you out because you have self-loathing. So I just love this concept. The big idea on page 53, distraction is natural. Don't feel bad when you get distracted. Everyone gets distracted. Multitasking takes a toll. At home or at work, distractions lead to poor choices, painful mistakes, and unnecessary stress. Distraction undermines results. When you try to do too much at once, you can end up doing nothing well. Figure out what matters most in the moment and give it your undivided attention. In order to put the principle, the one thing to work, you cannot buy into the lie that trying to do two things at once is a good idea. Though multitasking is sometimes possible, it is never possible to do it effectively. Isn't that good? You guys like that? Okay, so a disciplined life, and one of the most prevalent myths of our culture is self-discipline. So let's say that I work out every day and I'm in great shape. And you think, man, she's got so much discipline. When I was at Mega Camp last week, watching those people up on stage with these big lives, I'm thinking, man, they must get up so early and they must really stay focused and they must not have these little things that go on in my world. Well, yes, they do, right? So there's a pervasive idea that the successful person is the disciplined person who leads a disciplined life. We're still going through some of the lies of our culture. The truth is we don't need any more discipline than we already have. We just need to direct and manage it a little better. Contrary to what most people believe, success is not a marathon of disciplined action. Achievement does not require to be a full-time disciplined person where your every action is trained and where control is the solution to every situation. Success is actually a short race, a sprint, fueled by discipline long enough for a habit to kick in and take over. So none of you are giving me feedback this morning, and I want to know in the room or on the Zoom. Anyone know why we talk about the 66-day challenge?
Because it's in here.
Well, because it's out of the research, right, Melinda? And Claire is saying that as well, because it takes that long to develop a habit. So a disciplined person really has just developed a habit. Like one example I'll give as an agent is with Command or with any database that you were to use. Well, I don't go and check Command every day. I just, I wish it would forward to my email. And I'll say, okay, well, at one point in your life, unless you were born in, I don't know, if you're a brand new child, but you were not in the habit of checking your email your whole life. You, at some point, email came into your life, depending on how old you are, and then you got in the habit of checking your email every day, and sometimes every 5 minutes, because now it's on our phones, right? We used to have to go drive somewhere or open up for the email to come in. We got in the habit of waiting. Like all these habits that are in our worlds, we didn't used to check our phone. We didn't used to have it sitting out on the table. We got in the habit of that. And so what they found from the research is that the disciplined people figure out what's important,
Sparky.
and they do that for a short period of time. And they're disciplined about the one thing or the 20%, and that's how they look like they get everything done. Like the super moms that you go, how on earth does she do all of those things? She's just smarter than me or better than me or something. And we judge our outsides by our insides by other people's outsides is another old saying, because I'm judging myself by wow, look at this other person that seems to have it together. Well, they're focused in a certain part of their day getting what matters done. And the rest of the time they react to the world just like all of us. So it says on page 55, as it's underlined down here at the bottom, you can become successful with less discipline than you think for one simple reason. Success is about doing the right thing, not about doing everything right. I love that, you know. So selected discipline works swimmingly. Down here on page 57, when you do the right thing, it can liberate you from having to monitor everything. One other thing that I love the MAPS coaches, because now that I have one, and they'll ask you questions and get to some deeper thoughts for yourself, and then they'll say something like, just do the right thing. How do I know what the right thing is? The truth is that you know what the right thing is. If you ever are questioning it, you just haven't sat still long enough, because either God or or your intuition, it's very rare that you don't know what the thing you should be doing is. You're just not doing it. Mary's talking. Talk a little louder.
Like we were talking yesterday when we were watching the video with you.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
I can't hear.
Yeah, she was just saying we were watching, or we were listening to one of the MAPS coaches yesterday,
And you hear those little voices.
and he said you hear the voices that tell you you can't do it.
Spirit speaking to you. I mean, if you're doing something wrong, you're going to fall down.
If you're doing something wrong, you know it. And if you're doing something right, you know it as well. And when you're doing too much at once so that you're distracted from what matters, or you're stressed out because you've got so much to do, this is what the book is, figuring out what is the one thing that you could do right now. So the 66 days to the sweet spot, that's just basically, as I already said, the habits that you can form. So if you have a 66-day challenge, what would that mean? Well, all it means is that every day for 66 days in a row, you went in and watched a little video and for that example, or for, say you wanted to work out and you wanted to lose weight. If you tracked your calories and you exercised for 66 days in a row, by the 67th day, you're in the habit of doing it. Now it is no longer that I have to remember to brush my teeth. It is a habit that I'm in, right? Because it's a formed habit. And this is the bad habits and good habits. You can break a habit, but not in one day. So on page 59, the results suggest it takes an average of 66 days to acquire the new habit. You ever heard that like it takes 20 days or 21 days or something like that? That's what we always heard. Well, this is where they spent years researching it and found that it was 66. So big idea is don't be a disciplined person. Build one habit at a time. So say I want to lose weight, I want to read a book, I want to lead generate, and I want to watch Google videos every day that are inspiring. And all 4 of those or 5 of those, however many I said, I'm going to do those starting today. Well, your success will be pretty low. You should choose one new thing to do every day if you want to form a habit and do it for 66 days. That's the research. I'm not making it up. Give each habit enough time, he says on page 60. Did you guys read the part about willpower? So this is another concept I love. So multitasking is a lie. Discipline is a lie. And then this goes kind of right in hand with willpower. So they'll do like the research of taking a little kid and putting a cupcake in there in the room with them and saying, no, you can't eat this. If you don't eat this cupcake, you'll get something, right? And then they'll sit there and look at that cupcake, look at that cupcake, and for a long period of time, if the reward is big enough, they won't eat it. But there is some point, if they're in there long enough, that they just can't resist it forever, because this is your willpower. You can walk by Roxanne's chocolate dish. I'm not going to eat chocolate. I'm not going to eat chocolate. I'm not going to eat chocolate. And then at a stressful moment, you just. Hey. So the reason that this is in the research and in the book is willpower is always on call, is that use your willpower when you have it and realize that it's almost like a resource that gets used up. So he says on page 63, willpower is always on will call is a lie. We'll get into when you're doing your one thing, your most important work, the things that matter to you, do them when you have the most energy and the most resolve, because you'll, like, say the new show that you're watching is out that you want to binge watch. Well, I can't watch that until I do my most important work. Eventually you'll go, oh, never mind, I'm going to watch it. You know, you just don't have willpower forever. So you've got to take it when it's there, and use it during those times of day that you find yourself effective. So the torture toddler, you know, that's the study on the short supply of willpower. Page 65, renewable energy. Willpower has limited battery life. Page 66, the more we use our mind, the less minding power we have.
You missed one thing I thought. Was
Okay,
really
what are
important.
you thinking?
That the kids that had more willpower, they tracked them later in life, and they were much more successful than the ones that didn't.
So the ones that made the decision
To wait.
to
I'm
wait,
going to wait. And I'm
right?
Gonna get the
So
toothpaste
that
instead of the lunch.
self-gratification thing is
He tracked them later.
and it's another habit, right?
Yeah, but he tracked them later, and they were by far more successful than the other ones.
Yeah. So that part of the book is very interesting, of all of the little choices that make up our lives, and all of those times that we acquiesce to those voices and do it's the pain and pleasure thing that we talk about in Ninja and in Bold, that the pain of actually getting in there and working on the database, or something that maybe you guys don't think that's painful, but I do. The pain of that, as opposed to later on all that money that I would lose, you know, making that, while I have the willpower, decision to do what matters, instead of, man, it would feel nice to lay in bed right now, that pleasure, right? So your renewable energy with willpower has limited battery life. The more we use our mind, the less minding power we have. So your brain does not work, 24/7 the same way. He talks here about energy and food, the way your judgments work. On page 69, he's talking about, and I say they, there's more than one author, production favorable decisions. So you start out with your good decision making and your willpower and your resolve, and you're not going to eat the cupcake, and you're going to lead generate, and you're going to wait to answer the emails, and all those things that you say, this matters to me, and I'm going to get my most important work done. And then do you see how it diminishes? Your energy diminishes over, say, an hour or two. Then you take a break. You get some more energy. You go at it again. You take an afternoon break at the end of the day. So he's talking about it.
That's my favorite one.
And then diminishes. So if you just think, I'm just going to work for 8 hours on this because I didn't do it all week, it's not possible, right, to do it effectively as if you would choose your one thing. Give willpower the time of day. This is where it's basically the time blocking idea. You make doing what matters most a priority when your willpower is at its highest. So let's say you wanted to exercise, and you want to exercise, and you're going to get yourself dressed and get your workout clothes on. And then you find a reason, because that voice tells you, oh, you don't have time, do it later. What happens all day long? Your chances of actually doing it diminish, right? And then you feel guilty, and then you go back in that cycle. So what taxes your willpower? Implementing new behaviors. Just even saying, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to change. That takes energy from you to not do it the same way you've always done it. Filtering distractions, resisting that temptation, resisting the temptation over and over and over to do something else takes away from your energy level. So you can't just do that all day. Do your most important work, your one thing, early in the day. It's just the facts, guys. It's just the research. So big ideas. Don't spread your willpower too thin. Monitor your fuel gauge. If you don't eat all day because you're so busy, what happens? Right? You're not going to be as effective. You're not going to have the energy. You're not going to have the resolve. You're not going to get in the new habits. The things that matter to you aren't going to get done. You're going to get self-loathing. Time your task. Do what matters first each day when your willpower is strongest. Maximum strength willpower means maximum success. Mind your motivation. New research by Dr. Michael, I don't know how to say his last name, and others suggest your motivation, attention, and beliefs about your willpower also impact your self-control. Don't fight your willpower. Build your days around how it works and do its parts to build your life. Willpower will not be on will call, but when you use it first on what matters most, you can count on it. So I love that. Your balanced life. Did anybody have any thoughts on this part? I know you did, Heath.
Probably.
Well, I'm asking Heath because Heath was reading the book before today, before this talk, and he referred to the counterbalancing act.
Living a balanced life is a lie because you find yourself constantly counterbalancing. Like for instance, when I was getting ready to go on vacation, I literally felt that counterbalance go vacation mode, where I wasn't as productive as I could have here because my mind was thinking about vacation.
So sometimes the opposite will happen, because when you're going on vacation, you'll turn up your effectiveness because you have to, right? You've got so many things to take care of that you really get focused on your one thing. And your balanced life, where he says, the truth is balance is a bunk. It's unattainable pipe dream. When somebody says, I want work-life balance, it's not achievable. They're either going to have work or life. They can't not do it all, right? It's just not, it's the research shows that it is not, you cannot do everything. You can do some things well and give up other things. Like I love Gary Keller was talking one time about how he wants to play guitar, and he really would love to be well, he is a musician, but he would love to be, say, a master guitar player. But how much time would he have to spend on practicing, on learning, on growing his guitar skills? So it was something he wanted to do, but he realized he cannot do everything. So he had to make a choice. Do I want to spend the time that it would take to be a guitar player, or do something else matter? So he decided he could still play guitar, but not at the level he wanted to. When Mike Jordan was deciding to be the best basketball player he could be, he had to decide that that was what he wanted, and then he had to spend that time practicing basketball. He probably wasn't as good at golf, or I know he was doing a lot of things, but he probably could have been a better golfer had he not been focused on basketball, right? You just can't do everything. So he says, a balanced life is a lie, and as you go through these pages 74, 75, the rise of the work-life balance myth. So he's talking about how society started to talk about this in the 80s, and middle management and the culture of our society started to talk about be able to do it all. And what they found was that it's not possible. It's a myth. It's a lie. It's a thing that you're saying to yourself that, oh my gosh, I should be able to do everything, and I'm not doing anything well. So let's say you want to spend time with your children, and you want to be a top producing realtor. The example in the book is, could you tie two things together? Could you spend time with your child while you're, put them in the car while you go on your way to look at a neighborhood, and actually talk to the child while you're in the car? It's how can you put two things together? Like when I started in this role I'm in, I realized that I needed to read more than I had before. And I have always loved to read, but I don't have time to read because I have all these other things to do now. And so I also wanted to exercise, or I'm driving in my car. So then I realized, okay, wait a minute, could I listen on audio to the books that I want to listen to while I'm in the car, instead of listening to music, or instead of listening to talk radio or whatever I used to do, because I had to mesh my life into balance with the things that I want. I could either read or not read. Well, if I want to read, when? And it has to go into your plan. And so could I do it in the car? Could I do it while I'm exercising? What podcast will I now listen to when I'm doing something, even doing dishes?
Isn't that multitasking though?
Well,
driving a
you're
car
not,
and trying to.
This is where the multitasking section talks about. So you're
listening.
You can't read and drive,
Yeah,
right? You're listening.
But
and you're not
driving
listening
takes
as effectively.
concentration. You're in a lethal
Right.
weapon
So you're driving your car, which takes a different part of your brain though,
there.
right? So do you think you should just have no noise on in the car?
No.
To be the best driver you would, like if you were racing a car, if you were in heavy traffic,
But
if
listening
you're-
to a radio though, it's not important. If I'm trying to absorb what's in a book,
Well,
wanna be
and
paying
it's so true what you're saying, because sometimes I have to listen to it multiple times. Because honestly, because I was distracted, I didn't really absorb it. So if it's very important what I'm listening to, I wouldn't do it when I'm driving, right? So, but that is that part of that material that shows you're not effectively doing it like you think you are. And if something happened in the car, you're going to turn it off or not listen to it, right? Joel?
And what you listen, what you're hearing while you're driving, actually conscious or, and at some point in time, use it, so it will be real.
Yeah, he's saying that unconsciously you're hearing it, and I think that's true for what we listen to at night or what we're listening to at our desk. You might think, like, say, the negative things that we listen to doesn't affect us. Your unconscious mind is picking up all those things. What we'll talk about your RAS is listening for things that matter to you. So the only thing about the difference in multitasking and work-life balance or counterbalance is, can you put the things that matter to you together? It's not that you can multitask, it's that can you choose what you want out of your life. He says to achieve, on page 81, to achieve an extraordinary result, you must choose what matters most, give it all the time it demands. This requires getting extremely out of balance in relation to all other work issues. So this is really saying no to things more than anything. This concept is, no, that does not fit within my goals and my values and what I really want for myself. So I cannot say yes to what you just asked me to do, for example, or something like that. When you act on your priority on page 82, you'll automatically go out of balance, giving more time to one thing over another. So on page 83, think about two balancing buckets. Separate your work life and your personal life into two distinct buckets, not to compartmentalize them, just for counterbalancing. Each has its own counterbalancing goals and approaches. So when you think through what matters to you and what your one thing is, and what, as we get in further in the book, we'll talk about the different sections of your world, counterbalance your work bucket. View work as involving a skill or knowledge that must be mastered. This will cause you to give disproportionate time to your one thing and throw the rest of your workday, week, month, and year out of balance. Your work life is divided into two distinct areas, what matters most and everything else. So you have to first figure out what matters most. And it's customer service. There's lots of things on your list, what matters most. This is what's hard about figuring out what the one thing is. And when you start to get in the habit of figuring out what the one thing is, you'll know. You'll do these exercises and you'll know. Counterbalance your personal life bucket. Acknowledge that your life actually has multiple areas. Each requires a minimum of attention for you to feel that you have a life. Drop any one of them and you feel the effects. So you can't just work, and you can't just exercise, and you can't just anything, right? There's all kinds of things in your buckets. Start leading a counterbalanced life. Let the right things take precedence when they should, the rest when you can. An extraordinary life is a counterbalancing. That's that material. Good stuff, right?
9:05.
Have a great morning, everyone.
Thank you.
Go do your one thing.
Is Ninja.